Hi everybody, this is Boog Reviews, and today I'm going to be doing a review on the brand new Marvel Legends Skaar Son of Hulk Deluxe figure. So before we take a look at Skaar, let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories that he comes with. So first up, he comes with a set of fisted hands. Up next, he comes with accessory holding hands. Up next, he comes with his sword, and this has some amazing sculpt detail to it. You can see the little dings in the sword, the scratches and everything, but this is cast in such a shiny, cheap looking plastic that it's not funny. Like, you get some really nice sculpted detail to the wrapping on the handle right here and even the blade itself, but it's just cast in this very awful looking plastic. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go over this with a flat coat and maybe even do a black wash over top of it. I think that'll bring the details out very nicely and make it look better. One thing that I really don't like is he doesn't have storage for this on his back. In most iterations, Skaar has a sheath on his back for the sword, and this one doesn't have any of that. Let's take this out of his hand. You can put it through the strap on his back, but it barely stays there, and I don't think it looks good like that. I think it looks kind of ridiculous. So yeah, it would have been really nice if he would have had a sheath like he does in the comics for this. Up next, he comes with his knife, and just like with the sword, it's cast in this really shiny gray plastic that looks very cheap. You get some really good sculpt detail to the wrapping and the bone there on the handle, but the paint just really falls flat on these accessories for me. They look decent, but they could have looked a lot better. And finally, he comes with this alternate angry head sculpt, and this looks really good. I love the green for the eyes, the sculpt of the hair looks great, the way it's blowing. That looks very nice. Hasbro did a really good job on this alternate head sculpt. So now let's go ahead and take a closer look at his regular head sculpt. So taking a look at this regular head sculpt, it looks fantastic as well. I particularly love the sculpt of the hair, the way the strands are down there in his face and the way it lays on his chest and back. It just looks really good. Like I said, I love the head sculpt, but the hair in particular really stands out on this figure. If you lift the strands of hair up, you can see that he has some nice print details on his face. He has some printed variation in paint around the eyes, and the eyes, they look like they're black and green. The eyes are kind of hard to tell because the print on them is a little bit messy. I think I would have preferred if they would have been done in black with white pupils. I really like it when Skaar is drawn that way. I think that looks really cool. But overall, I really like this head sculpt, and that looks very awesome. I think the body looks nice as well. If you look closely, you can actually see he has some texturing to his skin. Alongside the veins they're sculpted on there, that looks really good. You get the tribal tattoos, they're done in green. Depending on who's coloring Skaar, sometimes they're dark green, sometimes they're light green, and sometimes they're black. I would have preferred a darker green color. I think that would have looked a little bit better. But yeah, depending on what colorist is coloring it, it will be different colors. He has some really cool texturing on the strap here on his chest. It looks really good, but no sort of paint variation to it. The loincloth has some really nice sculpted fur. That looks really good. Just like with the weapons, though, this is done in this really shiny gray color. I would have preferred that to be a matte finish. And you don't get any sort of variation over top of the fur. I think that would have looked nice to have some variation there. Just some printed details, even just a little bit of printing right here. I think that would have looked really good and made the figure look a lot better. Just like with the straps right here, the wrappings on his forearm has some really nice texturing to it. But again, the gray parts fall really, really flat. Just like with the tattoos, sometimes these are colored as silver, depending on who's coloring Skaar in the comics. So I think it would have been cool if this would have had just a little bit of silver paint over top of it. I think that would have made it look a lot better. Just leave it cast in this kind of a shiny gray color and then have some silver printed over top of it. That would have looked really good. Just like with the spikes over here, I think the spikes being done in silver, or at least having some silver printed over top of them, looked fantastic. But yeah, we don't get any of that. I also wanted to mention that on the accessory holding hands, you get a hinge on the right side and no hinge on the left side. For characters that have swords or hold weapons in both hands, they need hinges on both sides. So that does irritate me that this side didn't include a hinge as well. I forgot to mention that Skaar has a sheath on the back of his loincloth right here that you can put the knife in, and it holds very well. It's a really tight fit, so that looks really cool. I feel like these legs are reused from a Build-A-Figure, because most of this figure is pinless, but then you get down here to the legs and they have pins. and they want to pop apart right here. They pop apart very easily and look like how a Build-A-Figure is put together. So I want to say that these legs are reused from a Build-A-Figure. I just can't place what it would be. Someone said the Age of Apocalypse Deluxe Apocalypse figure, but I looked at them side by side and it didn't look the same to me. I could be wrong, but yeah, these pop apart like these were reused from a Build-A-Figure or something. You get some more really shiny, cheap, gray-looking plastic down here on his boots. You get some excellent fur sculpt right here. That looks really good, but it's kind of really shiny, and it needed to be a matte finish, and it needed to have some light brown printed over top of it. That would have looked really good. For a deluxe figure that's pricier than regular, I'm let down by the paint on this. I think the paint on this could have been a lot better. You know, for a higher price figure, we should definitely be getting a lot better paint on him. I also have some complaints with the articulation, which let's go ahead and go over that now. So he has a ball jointed head that can't really look back at all. He can look down, but if you force it, then his head pops off. Which it is a ball joint, and you have the interchangeable head, so it's meant to pop off. But anytime I try to move the head down, the head just constantly pops off. He can barely move his head side to side. He has shoulders that can move out this far. They do hit right up here, so if you force the joint up any further, you could scuff the plastic up. He has butterfly joints that are pretty limited. And on this left side, anytime I move the shoulder, the plastic gets chewed up. So yeah, that's nice. That really bothers me. Is it doing on this side? You can see a little bit of scuffage right there. So yeah, there's not enough clearance in between this joint, and it's chewing the plastic up, and that looks really bad. If you have his arms like this, you're really not going to notice it, but that still bothers me that the plastic is getting chewed up, because that is terrible. He has this weird bicep that moves by itself. I think it's just slipped over top of the joint is why it moves like this. He has single jointed elbows that can only bend in that far. They do move side to side, as well as having this part move like that. He has a hinge on the right wrist that can move up and down very nicely, and you just get your regular swivel that moves up and down and side to side on this side. And yeah, that really does bother me, because like I said, when a character holds a weapon in two hands, you definitely need hinges on both sides. He has an ab crunch that can move back that far. He can crunch forward all the way. And the waist swivel right here is pretty hindered because of this loincloth piece. If you move it down, you can get a little more articulation out of it. But yeah, it doesn't want to move on mine. So he has hips that can only move out that far, and you can see the joints starting to pop apart right here. He can kick forward just a little bit before you pop the legs off. And that is my big complaint with this. I want to get him in some epic poses, and the legs are always popping off. If it's not their left side, then it's the right side. So yeah, that is extremely irritating to me. He can kick back just a little bit. He has a swivel at the thigh, double jointed knees, and you will have to hold it up here, or else, you guessed it, it's going to pop in half. So it can move back like that. He has a swivel at the boot that barely moves side to side. It catches and doesn't want to move more than that. You can see how slight it is on both sides. So he does have articulation, but it barely even moves there. And he has a swivel ankle that can move down all the way, up all the way, and a nice ankle rocker. So now, let's do some size comparisons. So first up, here he is next to the very first version of himself. I think this was from like 2008. The Fin Fang Foom Wave Scar figure. And man, this figure is terrible. The proportions, the way his neck is hunched so far forward, the way his arms won't go down all the way, the terrible articulation. The one bright spot on this figure, I have to say, is the paint variation. I love the paint variation over top of the figure. It looks really nice. This one also has a different head on it. For some reason, when I got this figure, it didn't have a head, so I found one that fit on the ball peg. And yeah, it's still a terrible figure, and I'm glad I was able to update it. Here he is next to Hulk, and honestly, we need a good modern Hulk figure. I would like a new figure. This is more of a classic looking Hulk to me, so yeah, it would be really cool if Hasbro to release a new deluxe modern Hulk figure. Here he is next to She-Hulk, the brand new She-Hulk from the Iron Man Retro Wave. Here he is next to Silver Surfer, who looks very small next to him. And finally, here he is next to Iron Patriot. There for a while, Skaar was a double agent on Norman's second iteration of the Dark Avengers team. That was a really cool time when he was with them. So overall, I think Hasbro did a really good job on updating this figure. As I said, the old one was awful in just about every way except the paint. But honestly, the paint falls really flat on this. For a deluxe figure and a higher price point, I think we should have gotten a lot more paint detail on this figure than what we got. The articulation is also frustrating in some spots, like the shoulders being chewed up anytime you move it, and then the legs just falling off. The legs falling off has to be the most annoying thing about this figure. When I try to get him in a really good and epic pose, then they just pop straight off. So that makes it almost impossible for him to be posed in anything other than like this, like a vanilla pose. So I do think it is a good update, but I think it could have been a lot better too. So that's my review. If you like this review, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.